We've stopped fooling, Monica.
So, good evening. Welcome to the Friday Study Circle, and just grateful for this opportunity where we learn so much more than what we actually do individually. So, I would request whoever is ready to start with their sharing anything that we have read, we have questions on, we want to just share because of its beauty with the others here in the circle from any master or mystic. Any sharing is welcome. Thank you so much. Uh, Sarda ji, do you have anything? Like maybe you would want to go first today? Oh, is she gone? No, yeah. I think there's some problem with the internet. Uh, who would, Jyotsna ji, would you like to go first today?
Captain.
Captain? Okay, Captain, please, on popular request.
Good evening. I am going through the synthesis of yoga, and a very interesting subject I was reading today. Uh, the divine Shakti. So this is the name of the chapter is the action of the divine Shakti, and paragraph starts with this is the nature of the divine.
Your voice was breaking in between. This is the nature of.
This is the nature of the divine Shakti, divine Shakti.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll just read it out. One paragraph. Uh, this is the nature of the divine Shakti, that it is the timeless power of the divine which manifests itself in time as an universal force creating, constituting, maintaining, and directing all the movements and workings of the universe. This universal power is apparent to us first on the lower energy, of which all our mental, vital, and physical activities are the operations. It is necessary for our sadhana that we should thoroughly realize this truth in order to escape from the pressure of the limiting ego view and universalize ourselves even on these lower levels where ordinarily the ego reigns in full force. To see that we are not the originators of action and that it is rather this power that acts in ourselves and in all others, not I and others, the doers, but the one Prakriti, which is the to limit, separate, and sharply differentiate to make the most of the individual form. And it is there because it is indispensable to the evolution of the lower life. But when we would rise above to a higher divine level, we eventually get rid of it. For the lower life, the development of ego. So for the higher life, this reverse movement, elimination of the ego is indispensable. To see our actions as not our own, but those of the divine Shakti working in the form of the lower Prakriti on the inferior levels of the conscious being helps powerfully towards this change. And if we can do this, then the separation of our mental, vital, and physical consciousness from that of the other things thins and lessens, the limitation of its workings remain indeed, but they are broadened and taken up into a large and vision of the universal working. The specializing and individualizing differentiations of nature abide for their own proper purpose, but are no longer a prison. The individual feels his mind, life, and physical existence to be one with that of others amid all differences, and one with the total power of the spirit in nature. So, the point of the divine Shakti, when I was reading, then there are very important thought processes actually included in this chapter. The divine Shakti is the timeless power of the divine. So this is one of the thought process, like which we have to acknowledge that yes, the divine Shakti is the timeless power of the divine. There is no beginning and there is no end to it. And this second one is this power manifests itself in time as an universal force, creating, constituting, maintaining, and directing all the movements and working of the universe, whether the human beings were working or animal kingdom or whatever may be. So all these workings of this universe, they are creating, constituting, maintaining, and directing all the movements. And the third important point was this universal power is apparent to us first on the lower levels of existence as mental, vital, and material cosmic energy, of which all our mental, vital, and physical activities are the operations. So whatever the operations we are doing as a human being, so all this universal power can be felt, that it is from that universal power which is existing in us. It is there within us. So for our sadhana, we should thoroughly realize this truth in order to escape from the pressure of the ego view, and universalize ourselves even as those lower levels where ordinarily the ego reigns in full force. So that ego creates all the problem, because whatever knowledge we have gained, so say we have the ego from the beginning for anything and everything. If I do some job and people say it's a very good job, so I form my ego. So likewise, from the beginning of our life, we have been subjected to gain egos actually everywhere. So that ego to get rid of, so we have to use this, able to understand, and we then probably we can start working on that, and we'll be able to move forward as a sadhana. So these are the thought processes which was coming. So I'd request anyone to come forward and discuss.
Captain, your voice was breaking in between.
Okay.
So, but this one we have already now covered because you so beautifully again had covered it. But just for consistency, I'll just read the rest and then we'll take up the discussion. So you've covered till 4, so I'll just read it. To see that we are not the originators of action, but that it is rather this power that acts in ourselves and in all others, not I and others the doers, but the one Prakriti, which is the rule of the Karam Yoga, is also the right rule here. The ego sense serves to limit, separate, and sharply differentiate to make the most of the individual form, and it is there because it is indispensable to the evolution of the lower life. But when we would rise above to a higher divine life, we must loosen the force of the ego and eventually get rid of it. As for the lower life, the development of ego, so for the higher life, this reverse movement of elimination of the ego is indispensable. To see our actions as not our own, but those of the divine Shakti working in the form of the lower Prakriti on the inferior level of the conscious being, helps powerfully towards this change. So I'll just repeat the last thing. To see the actions as not our own, but those of the divine Shakti is the way in which these, we can get over these, would help powerfully towards this change. And if we can do this, then the separation of our mental, vital, and physical consciousness from that of other beings thins and lessens. The limitations of its workings remain indeed, but they are broadened and taken up into larger sense and vision of the universal working. The specializing and individualizing differentiations of nature, specializing, individualizing differentiations of nature abide for their own proper purpose, but are no longer a prison. The individual feels his mind, life, and physical existence to be one with that of others, amid all differences, and one with the total power of the spirit in nature. So this was the complete thing. Yeah, anybody, any reflections, please? Chitraji, you had once, talked about oneness, right? How to feel that. So I felt that thing was
Yeah,
also,
same thing came to me. Yeah.
was very beautifully being
Yeah.
answered here. Yeah.
Taru, can that be repeated once again for the oneness part of it? If you
Yeah, you have to go down, I think.
Yeah. So to see our actions as not our own, but those of the divine Shakti working in the form of the lower Prakriti on the inferior level of the conscious being, helps powerfully towards this change. And if we can do this, then the separation of our mental, vital, and physical consciousness from that of other beings thins and lessens. The limitations of its working remains indeed, but they are broadened and taken up into a larger sense and vision of the universal working.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm most welcome.
And it is no longer a prison. Yeah. The
Yeah.
specializing and individualizing differentiation of nature abide for their own proper purpose, but are no longer a prison. Yes. Now we feel everything, very confined and restricted, no? So if we bring that oneness, that feeling, we will be very, that is the wideness, no? Wideness, Sri Aurobindo used to insist upon that actually, always, that wideness. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like every, sorry, Monica, yeah. Bolo, please.
नहीं मैं बोलूंगी आप बोलो please go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when I am standing in front of somebody and I have a difference of opinion, which is very common, right? Like we all have our little things. Somehow mine feels much righter to me, right, than the other. That, okay, even if I say I accept where you are standing, and yet there is something in me which feels that, but mine is more logical, mine is more, I don't know, universal. Like there's something there which in me which feels that sense of a little bit better with my own opinion. So when Monica, especially, when one of the talks, Tenzin Palmo, Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, how she had mentioned that like everybody just wants wellness, right? And peace. So if no matter what happens, if we can just remember that behind all actions, right, no matter what the other person is saying, if you keep reminding yourself that I also want peace and wellness, and he also wants peace and wellness, and the reason why this is being done is because he feels this is the way that he will get it, somehow then that reaction is not strong, or you don't react because it feels like, okay, if this is giving him his comfort, if this is his journey to reach his peace, then it's all right, right? So I think in that also, this, that it's acting through me, right? Like something is acting through me. Neither my point of view is something in stone, and nor his or her point of view is something in stone. Is something that I felt when I was, when Captain was reading it. And I'll just finish it. The other thing was the reversal. You know how in life, like especially the way we are kind of in this society, we first have to learn everything and then relearn, right? Like everywhere they say, ego is the helper, ego is the bar. Like we had discussed it, right? Desire is the helper. So this discernment, that when to use it, when to pick it, and when to now leave it is so important. And I was reading something the other day, in that also mother had talked about, I think it was about purification, and she said the most important thing is purification of understanding. Because the way we live, our data is corrupted. So once the understanding gets purified, how, what, where, and then everything, because there are more things, but she said that was the most important. When to use that, how to use it, where it's taking me is very nice, and it feels quite amazing that how everything first I have to believe, and then say no, no, I don't believe it, right? Or I use, and then I say I don't need it anymore. So that's quite humbling and good to know that that's again and again. Yeah, that's it from me.
It's a wonderful coincidence. That's why we both are smiling. Actually, today we read about that purified understanding. Sri Aurobindo's, yeah, it's the same synthesis of yoga. He took us point by point, slowly, as if he's taking our hands and taking us in the journey. It's beautiful. Josna ji, yeah. Because the main obstacle is the sense mind that always confuses everything, no? That understanding also, yeah. So
Sri Aurobindo says it's the vital and the desire that plays the primary role in corrupting your understanding. Second is the senses, which is the sense mind, basically the senses. And third is the will. And combining all three, which cloud the understanding completely. I mean, desire and ego play, the vital play together through the ego. And the senses completely change the perception and bank on past memory, and after contorting and distorting everything, present it back to the mind as a preformed thought. And the third, he says, is again a distortion of the will also. So when you combine all together, the purified understanding is lost. But if you eliminate them successively, being aware, then you progress and get purified.
and the heart also be purified from that fear and that
You
wrath.
gave very good examples.
Yeah. You can love, but that love should be it can be an intense love, but it should be deep and calm love, it seems. All are really, it went inside. It should go and work now.
We each were relating instances from our lives and trying to connect them with how we can operate it through our kitchens and our spouses and everybody. And when you practically apply it, it is so difficult. But Sri Aurobindo takes you on a practical plane and literally handholds you through the process of how you can transform yourself into a purified understanding. Very beautiful 3 paragraphs.
Yeah.
You can share that, Jyotsna ji. How?
It's very long, but I can tell you the
Ha,
Page
as in,
numbers. You have the
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Oh,
I can tell you
It-
the beginning.
okay. So it's in this, it's in the incarnate word also.
Yes.
Okay.
The chapter, yeah.
Taru 313. The line starts with first cause of impurity in the, yeah.
Josna ji, it's 313, huh?
Yes.
Okay, in the book.
313.
Okay.
This, it's here, Nandini.
All right. Thank you, Jyotsna.
Till perfect knowledge. It is very practical and
Yeah.
very beautiful.
Because Taru correctly brought out that understanding, no? So really wonderful coincidence.
When you read it, you literally feel that he is sorting out each living problem of yours.
Yeah.
And basically, when he says all this and he says equanimity or equality of mind, I remember Monica saying, Samta rakho. Then I go recycle everything back again, and you have to maintain a calm. It's very beautiful, worth reading.
Yeah.
Monica, you had wanted to share something. Would you want to share now?
Actually, it was nothing really. It just came to me, the prison, on the prison thing. There was this line about how we feel kind of as if we are in a prison. And I was just thinking that I think most of the times we feel we are in a prison because we don't really enjoy ourselves. we we don't nurture our capacities, we don't nurture our talents, abilities. We are so much lost in the trivia all the time. We don't enjoy ourselves, we don't enjoy being ourselves. And if I was just reflecting on my life, that if I would enjoy being myself, I don't feel as if I'm in a prison. I feel in a prison when the external situations are too overwhelming and I'm not giving enough nurture to my being. Only that time I feel I am suffocating myself. Otherwise, what this line was about, that Shakti manifesting itself out of each one of us. One feels that, when one nurtures one's abilities and strengths. And as Mother says, that we all have unique, very unique roles to play in this universe. Each one of us is very unique and special. But somehow our bad conditioning, I would say, is such that we don't realize that worth. And many a times we do realize the worth, but then it goes in the opposite directions. Many a times we feel that we are totally unworthy and incapable, and there is nothing special about us. And the extreme of it is also, we see, that I am the one who is very, very special, and rest all may just go to hell. So
Correct.
yeah. So that it just came on the prison thing that you read. Yeah. And otherwise it was a beautiful sharing, the paragraph and all the reflections. Yeah.
So my, I think this question is for, for everyone. I find that, the more I, working on the practice, trying to, come, that understanding has grown over the years, right? There has been a certain lesson to everything, whether you're doing like in one of the sessions that you had spoken about, Monica, when we are looking, are we looking? When we are making tea, are we making tea? When we are talking to someone, are we really talking to that person? The thing is, some of these thoughts or these processes must have come to some of us much earlier. Just it must have come. The thing is, I find that now I have not much to, I don't have anything left to talk about, with the day-to-day existence of your day-to-day activity, right? Or engaging with these small interactions that we think are so very important for our day-to-day existence. Like it was pointed out, what might not be important for me, or not even important, I think it's a lack of, I can't find a word, but just the idea of living that day to day, I find that my voice has become much more quieter, and I don't have really anything to speak on a general level. So, and that is difficult. So how? So, and that's where Jyotsna ji, when she said that, I just want to, if there's a sort of elaborate, something simpler to sort of come to.
So, Nandini, why do you say that it is difficult if you don't have much to say? Like people ask you that, why are you not speaking? Something like that, or like, I don't get it.
No, so see, it's not like you said, right? It is not about, you enjoy even the mundane things, right? You enjoy it. You just can't explain it to anyone anymore, right? That, oh, like for me, just going to the shop and buying vegetables is a joyful activity, which I'm sure for, obviously we all have busy lives and everybody is leading them, but so I don't have anything else to say, right? Beyond, I mean, I don't know how to, is there a response or sometimes, so obviously the other person, I've noticed that in conversations, then I end up being the, the quiet one. So I think it is not, so that there's always a response expected, and I don't have any response. Not that your life is, this thing. I mean, I'm glad, I'm happy that it's busy, it's good, but it just does not match the way it, and it cannot, right? My life cannot match yours or whatever. So I find that difficult. I don't have anything to talk about anymore. Over a cup of tea, like sometimes you want to just, I don't mean blabbering. What I mean is real conversation. And so you said, right, if I am thinking of the other person, what they are going to say, I am not thinking that. And I am truly wanting to listen to this friend, or, the person who is an acquaintance or whoever. And that is challenging for me. I mean, it is now with practice, with trying to, understand, coming to that purification, right? Because you're not always surrounded by purity. And how do you see that? How do you continue to be in that? Yeah.
You said we are not surrounded by purity. That just gave me, I'm just kind of sharing something else, not really there. We are actually all the time, we are surrounded by thoughts. As if we are swimming in the thoughts all the time. And the thing that you were sharing, I feel that it's just a phase, and we don't have to cling to these phases. As you said, that there were times that you used to have things to talk about, and now over the time, as you have evolved, or things have happened, changes have happened, just like that, this too shall pass. I also undergo many ups and downs of my own personality, and I mean, it's okay. Mother says that we are contradicting personalities, and it's okay, because no one personality stays. We are evolving all the time. So even if today I am a quiet one, so what? Tomorrow I'll be maybe a blabbering one. So what? So I think this, I would say, again, sharing my personal reflection on this, that I feel that not to get too swayed by what I'm supposed to be doing, because what we actually are supposed to be doing is something which has been waiting for us while we are busy, thinking what I am supposed to be doing. And it's just one simple thing, which is not that simple and which takes lifetimes, is to disentangle, as we were sharing, from the ego, disentangle from the egoistic state of consciousness. So I think again and again we have to bring ourselves back, as many teachers say, bring the puppy back. It goes out again and again, wanders in the world, bring it back to yourself through the breath or whatever, and stay home. And it's okay if you are the quiet one today, enjoy that quietness, one would say. So what? Yeah. And also this one thing I want to add on, the thing that you said, that we are not surrounded by purity. Absolutely. There is much ill will in me and around me. So that's becomes my responsibility to have goodwill then. That I know that people around me, I notice and I feel that ill will in people around me. Now, at the same time, I also feel it inside of me. So it becomes my responsibility now. Okay, they can't do it at the moment. Can I have goodwill? Can I be working from a good heart? Enough. You've done the work. Yeah. So yeah, I think beautiful sharing. Thank you for bringing it up. Yeah.
Thank you, Monica. But there are parts of, there is a part of me as a personality, probably. I think that's where. So I do feel sometimes saddened, right, by the fact that the number of people in my life also have reduced. And yeah, so that's something that I was probably, wondering how that, yeah. So, okay. So, all right, I'm there.
Mother
Thanks.
very significantly says that the chatter goes down and unnecessary speech and talking also dips down a lot to an extent which is significant. And she says this is natural. When you genuinely step on the path, it is a natural thing to happen, and there is nothing to be fazed about it. Second is, she also states that you will lose so-called friends to a bare minimum or no one. She says you will feel that you lost everybody who called themselves your friends, and it shouldn't matter to you. I think that is a very common phenomenon with all of us, that as we step onto the path, we lose our so-called pronounced friends.
That is true.
And I have no remorse for it, or I do not feel sad about it. I do not miss them. In
Yeah.
fact, I feel blessed that I am left to be with myself. I'm talking at my own personal level. In the last 2 years, from about 22 friends, I have only one left. One who I meet maybe once in a year. So, and there's no sadness. So you can take that as a
Yeah.
incentive.
Two things more,
Used to- yeah.
Nandini, are coming to me. One thing about sadness. That day somebody had sent me a quote by Krishnamurti, and it was really beautiful. I think Taru, you had shared that when a pleasant or unpleasant sensation is there, can I just be with that without labeling it? I think that's so hard because we are so used to categorizing and boxing everything into this is what I want, not like, not like, good for me, bad for me. We are so used to that. So it requires a lot of effort to not to really put a label on the sadness. You sense that it is sadness. And again, sharing from my own experience. So I see the sadness is there and I don't really do anything about it. It's almost hilarious that it's okay, it can stay. It can stay. I'm not going to do anything about it. And it's amazing the kind of miraculous effect it has if one allows it to be. The second thing I wanted to share was, again, as Josna ji was sharing, that one friend left and happenings, right? Happenings in life. Now, can I not make it either more spiritual or less spiritual if I have more friends, or can I just not categorize it? That it's good, it's good that if I have only one friend left, because that means I'm something higher evolved. Can I not categorize it? I think that's where effort is needed. That's why Mother Sri Aurobindo, they talk so much about effort. Kabir talks so much about effort, because my tendency, the old pattern of limited mind, that says बहुत बढ़िया हो रहा है, बहुत बढ़िया हो रहा है, बड़ा खराब हो रहा है, बड़ा. So again and again categorization happening. And can I be okay with that without categorizing? That requires a lot of effort. अगर एक कप पड़ा था कांच का एक टेबल पे, गिर गया, तो बस इसमें रह जाना कि गिर गया और सफाई कर देना वेरी चैलेंजिंग. किसने रखा था, मतलब चाय का भरा हुआ कप यहाँ पे कोने में किसने रखा था, कौन साफ करे? दिस इज द perceptions that are by default, they get made. And this is what we have to undo. You were talking about purified understanding, so this is how we are impure, all of us, and this is how we have to put effort to purify that. Okay, this happened, and let us get to the work that is required, without blaming or victimizing or superiorizing anyone. So I think that's very challenging, and that's what we are at, all of us, in our own right.
Yeah, right. Thank you.
Funny. Yeah, thank you too.
Thanks for sharing, Nandini. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Can I read?
Yeah.
Yes,
On
please.
endurance. Something that we all need.
Yeah.
Endurance, the vitals hunger for praise. Signs of the converted vital. Taru, let endurance be your watchword. Ji. Watchword is one word. Yeah. Yeah. I was thinking of reading only the salient lines so that we could cover the gist of it. So otherwise it's very long. What do you say? Can I do that?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Let endurance be your watchword. Teach the life force in you, your vital being, not to complain, but to put up with all the conditions necessary for great achievement. It is the vital being that is always grumbling and uneasy. The slavery and torture to which it subjects the physical is almost incalculable. But the very essence of endurance is that the vital should learn to give up its capricious likes and dislikes and preserve an equanimity in the midst of the most trying conditions. If you had to bear such hardships, you would realize, like the war she talks about, you would realize the utter silliness of your dissatisfactions. And yet, I do not wish you to quote difficulties. What I want is simply that you should learn to endure the little insignificant troubles of your life. It's the next paragraph now. Nothing great is ever accomplished without endurance. If you study the lives of great men, you will see how they set themselves like flint against the weaknesses of the vital. Even today, the true meaning of our civilization is the mastery of the physical through endurance in the vital. Surely, with such momentous work as we have in hand in our ashram, we have not any less need of endurance. What you must do is to give your vital a good beating as soon as it protests. For when the physical is concerned, there is reason to be considerate and to take precautions. But with the vital, the only method is a sound kicking. One of the next paragraph, yeah. One of the commonest demands of the vital is for praise. It hates to be criticized and treated as if it were of little importance. But it must be always prepared for rebuffs and stand them with absolute calm, nor must it pay attention to compliments, forgetting that each movement of self-satisfaction is an offering at the altar of the lords of falsehood. I found it really, this happens in everyday life all the time. But you must remember that the compliments paid by creatures on the same level of ignorance as oneself are really worth nothing. They are just as worthless as the criticisms leveled at one. Unfortunately, however, the vital craves even for the most rotten food and is so greedy that it will accept praise from even the very embodiments of incompetence. For such indeed is the vital in mankind ravenously fame hungry. What, however, is of genuine worth is the opinion of the truth. When there is somebody who is in contact with the divine truth and can express it, then the opinions given out are no mere compliments or criticisms, but what the divine thinks of you, the value it sets on your qualities, its unerring stamp on your efforts. It must be your desire to hold nothing in esteem except the word of the truth. And in order thus to raise your standard, you must keep Agni, the soul's flame of transformation, burning in you. It is noteworthy how, when Agni flares up, you immediately develop a loathing for the cheap praise which formerly used to gratify you so much. And understand clearly that your love of praise was a low movement of the untransformed nature. Agni makes you see what a vast vista of possible improvement stretches in front of you by filling you with a keen sense of your present insufficiency. All criticism comes as a welcome fuel to your humble aspiration towards the truth, inciting you to surpass yourself by surrendering to the divine. Now the next, that will finish it. Another remarkable sign of the conversion of your vital, owing to Agni's influence, is that you face your difficulties and obstacles with a smile. You simply chase away depression with a smile. 100 mistakes do not matter to you. With a smile, you recognize that you have erred, and with a smile, you resolve not to repeat the folly in the future. All depression and gloom is created by the hostile forces who are never so pleased as when throwing on you a melancholy mood. Humility is indeed one thing, and depression quite another. The former a divine movement, and the latter a very crude expression of the dark forces. A laugh of self-confidence and of faith in the divine is the most shattering strength possible. The converted vital feels also a joy in the process of realization. I really like this one because I feel in our day-to-day lives what endurance can do to us. Working on the vital and enduring the changes which endurance brings about are concrete. They actually cause a tremendous change in us, and we are able to sustain the change and carry it with us ahead. So that's why I thought I'll read it. You know, as an artist, I get a lot of praise, or I get praise from somewhere, and I hunger, you know, for criticism. That somebody tell me, you know, this is what is wrong, or this is what could have been changed, or this is what could have been altered, but it doesn't come. And then it rings of untruth, you know, of hollowness, and your connect with that particular XYZ individual starts diminishing because it doesn't ring true. I would really like reflections on this because I have faced it a lot in life, and I have, and not to be cynical, but I mean, there's hardly a genuine soul around to tell you. Very few, very, very few.
Really regarding art only, no? Art only you are telling like that only. Because if people doesn't
The
know about the
day-to-day life
intricacies,
also, somebody praises you, you'll know if it's coming from the truth or it's.
yeah, because art, regarding art, if that person doesn't know about the intricacy of art and all, generally they will say it is very nice, it is very beautiful.
I think the one passage that we had read before, right? Like in which I don't even remember which one, maybe it was this one only, I'm so sorry. That just be concerned from the divine, right? Like your relationship should be such, like say if I write a poem, for example, I know whether it's okay or not. Like I genuinely know whether it needs more working or whether this is okay. And I know that if I sit on it for 10 hours, I can still sit on it for 10 hours more. Like there's no end to perfection. But still, for this time, this seems like okay, this would do the job, and I'm feeling okay with it. Because like you said, it's like I don't know, like this business of praising and criticism, even if it's coming from truth or untruth, I think the more important question is, why do I want it? Like on a regular thing, if you are connected within, it's you get, you are led, you are driven, you see a lot that where you need to be, what you need to do. And I feel that if somebody praises, that also disrupts me, it takes me somewhere I don't want to go at times. And mostly you're able to stick on, but still there is a chance. And when somebody is critical, then also it disrupts. It's like that, why did they say this to me and stuff? So I'm just wanted to say that this wanting to have opinions or the true opinion, I don't know whether it matters. Like, just why wanting? Although, I mean, I can understand that one wants to know, but you are right that I think that we can just trust ourselves the most, like if we have that silence, which you do, of course, have, like,
It's not a wanting, it's that either nobody, somebody doesn't say anything, or if they like it, okay, I like it for whatever it is. But it's not the wanting, it's that when some false I just gave an example of myself because it's more concrete. When a false praise, or connected with what I read with mother, when something like that comes, it ever since I went more intensely on the path, it doesn't ring true. Whether it's good, bad, or ugly, you can make out. And that is where our endurance comes in. And, the ability of the vital to play with you so much that is when you realize that the vital plays absolute hangama with you. And during that process, you actually learn to start conquering the vital. That's the point I wanted to put across, that now I'm coming to a stage, I'm almost there, still little far. It doesn't matter. It's just the joy of creation. Like when you write a poem, it doesn't matter. It's just the joy of your creating something. Just the joy of making a sketch. You've just done it. You're not looking for approval or praise or criticism. You will come there. You come there. And then that connected with this ability to endure. Because the vital is just waiting to shove us, um, some ideas or the other, whether it's positive or negative. But usually it'll edge towards negative. But the ability to endure more and more is what mother says, and which we have to develop, so that we are like hardcore, never get depressed individuals, always happy. even whether the physical suffers or the vital takes a beating or whatever, you remain in a positive state. You attempt to remain, I would say. They're still human, but and it is possible. It's a possibility.
Yeah. I had read somewhere that the vital, the forces, the hostile forces, the influences are so strong, and especially they act through vital because that's the easiest target. That's the easiest way in which they can control. And it was said that only when the super mind is there, then it would be a final triumph and the forces would not be able to control us. But till we achieve that state, we cannot stop their influence. So all we can do is, like you said, endure, have faith in the grace, and just, every time just, know that they are there and you are ready to kind of, in the awareness that, yes, I will be, led, and I will be kind of, and as soon as you do, I think, catch yourself. But it's like, it was interesting to read, it so strongly that till the supermind comes, this would not, like it said that it cannot stop. Like it's not that you can stop or I can stop, like the vital forces, they would, they will kind of take over, yeah, for whatever time.
Actually, when this word endurance was being spoken, and separate a couple of sentences were spoken about endurance. So I was remembering about in Bhagavad Gita, there is a balanced life, the Sthita Pragga. Sthita Pragga. They say that when Arjuna asked actually that how to quieten the mind or something. So then the chapter 2, 56 sloka, 56th sloka, this is the sage where mind remains unperturbed amid sorrows, whose thirst for pleasures are altogether disappeared, and who is free from passion, fear, and anger, is called the stable of mind. So there are so many other slokas are there about the Sthita Pragga. So the mind is balanced actually. So I am at peace every point of time. So then that endurance comes in actually, and connected with that endurance, one word comes is the patience. That I should not be very impatient about certain things. I'm trying to do something. Means once I've decided that yes, I will go in this particular way, and all pros and cons I thought of, that this difficulty, that these are the difficulties which may come on the way, or this, all those have to be done as per Bhagavad Gita. We are supposed to do, analyze everything, SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses analysis, and all this have been done. And then we decide that yes, I will go in this path. So then we have to go, and still there will be certain issues which I never thought of that will come in the ups and downs of the mind and thought processes, and all these problems will keep coming. But the endurance is that you have to be there. You cannot just leave halfway through. When I reach certain stage, the endurance means it has to be continuing. So the mind should be balanced. So that was the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjun, he went to the battlefield for the war, but he says, no, I have seen this, the Guruji is there, how can I kill him, and this and that, and all those thoughts are coming. So he's saying that you cannot do that. You cannot, once you have come here, you have to balance your mind. And all the situations which are coming, you have to see in that light. Don't preconceived ideas and all this. As it is, like the word which was coming, that we are judgmental or leveling. The first we try to put a level. The moment anything happens, the first I try to put the level, try to blame somebody or something, or something good, something. Leveling as that is not good. Judgmental, or this is not my job. The judges are appointed with that authority. The president of India, they appoint judges. Then only the person can judge. But we keep on judging actually day and night. It creates a problem only. There's nothing else. There is no solution to it. So this is from by habit from the beginning, the way we are brought up or something. It goes like that. Our mental attitude is like this. This step is good. That person is bad. This is this. This is this. This is that. Actually, not a single person is good or bad, because it's all God's creation. God has created a different circumstances people have fallen in. So we have to have that sort of inclusiveness. Once I try to inclusive everybody, so probably then all these issues will get sorted out. So with that endurance, so I was remembering this patience and the balanced life leading, actually I was getting it. These are the thoughts which are coming to my mind while process. Thank you.
There is a couplet by Kabir I'm reminded of on this endurance thing, and also this sthit pragya that you shared. It's called Man ke bahtak rang hai, chin chin badle soe, ek rang mein jo rahe, aisa birla koe. So he says that mind has so many colors, like infinite, just like you were talking about moods, sadness, pleasant, sorrow, whatever, jealousy, all these are moods of mind. Man ke bahtak rang hai, various colors of mind. Chin chin badle soe. So chin is one moment. In every moment, you keep changing. The mind keeps changing. The limited conceptual mind, it keeps changing. Ek rang mein jo rahe. So the one who has now been able to stabilize himself in one color, he says that one is a rare one. And it appears that what Mother and Sri Aurobindo also and other people, who masters who talk about this, this identification, disidentification from the thought stream. There's rang bahut hai, chal rahe hain. Usually hum hi wo rang ban ke rehte hain. That abhi main sad hu, abhi main joyful hu. So hum hi wo rang ban jate hain. So to step back from the thought feeling stream and to know yourself as something more than the thought stream, and different also beyond the thought stream. So mujhe jab ye, if I reflect on this couplet by Kabir, it appears to me that when he says that ek rang mein jo rahe, wo jo rang hai, it's not the rang of the limited conceptual mind, because that will always keep on changing, as you were discussing, that as long as we are alive, we have to be vigilant, keep on changing. But then I have to identify myself as awareness, which actually always is one color, always. It's transparent always. And that's why it allows, just we were talking of that day in Savitri about the screen. The very fact that the screen is without any color, it can allow various colors to happen on itself. So as long as I do not identify or know myself as that screen, which has actually no color, and it allows the play to happen, I think I will always be deluded and will be swayed by, all that we were discussing, praise, criticism, and otherwise, if it comes, it comes. If it goes, it goes, if it comes, let me make the most out of it. If it goes, okay, time to move on. So I think it's really amazing to see that even a glimpse of identification with awareness, even a glimpse, how much of inner freedom it brings in our lives. We were talking of prison, earlier. Remaining in the four walls of a prison, I can be absolutely free. That kind of a power it has. So, and there, when I'm stabilized at that, which stabilizing takes a long time, there I can, be sthit pragya, as you were talking about. Otherwise, in the colors of the mind, there is no sthirta there, all the time moving. Prakriti, all the time moving. Yeah. So beautiful, yeah, the reflections and sharing. Yes.
And today about this awareness also I read something, same thing, disturbance of the vital is only small paragraph actually. So you brought that awareness, no? It is there actually. Letters on Yoga, volume 24. It is. The beginning is, what you have noticed about the disturbance is true. Sri Aurobindo is answering a disciple. There are now two consciousness in you. The new one that is growing and what is left of the old. The old has something in it which is a habit of the human vital. The tendency to keep any touch of grief, anger, vexation, etc., or any kind of emotional, vital, or mental disturbance, to make much of it, to prolong it, not to wish to let it go, to return to it even when the cause of disturbance is past and could be forgotten, always to remember and bring it up when it can. This is a common trait of human nature and a quite customary movement. The new consciousness, on the contrary, does not want these things, and when they happen, throws them off as quickly as possible. When the new consciousness is fully grown and established, then the disturbances will be altogether rejected. Even if the causes of them happen, there will be no response of grief, anger, vexation, etc. in the nature. Yeah, because I also read about this disturbances of the vital today, and I feel, yeah, this is true. Somewhat, yeah, definitely when we are in the path at one stage, you feel that awareness inside, and but the old tendencies again and again coming out, and that awareness is pointing out, at least in retrospect. Last session also I shared, no, at least in retrospect effect actually. But yeah, this is very beautiful. When I read this paragraph, you used to tell, no, Monica, about that awareness, and yeah, that reminded me. It is very beautiful.
No, this thing, the second or third line, the old has something in it which is a habit of the human vital. Many a times, there are, you must have also, all of us have also heard,
Yeah,
people, those of us who are on the path, many a times it feels when we are talking to people, and I think wherever, I don't know where I have heard it, but I've heard this many a times, that it appears that how can I become emotionless? Have you heard that? How, because it's almost,
yeah, I received
that,
that criticism.
that if you don't feel, have touch of grief, sadness, sorrow, it's not that one has not having, but it's just that one does not allow oneself to be swayed by that storm, right? So one feels, a phase comes when I feel that, have I become like a stone because I'm not feeling all this, but I feel that it's, these are just passing phases, and these superficial emotions which we are used to, the human vital which we're used to, all this attachment to people, and we are used to that. For us it is, if I am not attached to a person, we will say it's not love at all, right? So that's what we are used to. But I feel that when all of this surface things kind of slowly clears away, I think it gives rise to a space for deeper emotions, like kindness, compassion, empathy, love, courage, endurance, all that. It's like kachada hatake, and that's what Alokda many a times shares in his talks, that the divine gives us an exchange offer. That's what he says, that give all the rotten mal to me, and take back all the goodies, but we are not ready. Yeah.
And the beautiful thing is that new awareness is there, but the old is coming out. You can feel that, no, that awareness, it is there.
Yeah.
That is the thing.
Yeah.
That is the distorted vital.
Actually, we are so used to the distorted vital that feels like normal.
Yeah.
That ye tujhe ho kya gaya? Are you abnormal? Yeah, it feels
You know,
normal. And
in the process of transformation, when you try to change it, there is so much internal fighting happening. It is like a Mahabharat in your head or heart or whatever. It completely shakes you. Maybe that is one of the reasons why you become quiet also, because the vital fighting with the desire and the truth is saying
Inside it is going on. So
but I think this
and
is so
thanks to lockdown.
beautiful. Yes, absolutely. I think, yeah. I think it's the one thing which I nowadays I'm hearing again and again, which has so much of because death can strike any time, right? We don't know if we are going to be there even the next moment, heart attack and gone. Anything can happen. So the idea, it's like when Shri Krishna says in Gita also that you remember me when somebody remembers me at the time of passing, and the time of passing can be any time. So it means to focus, because I see that we take it for granted again and again, that अभी तो नहीं मरना, ये पक्का है, मतलब कुछ है अंदर जो बैठा हुआ है कि उसको पता है कि बस अगला मोमेंट मेरा ही है. कोई मरना धरना नहीं हो रहा, वो मरेगा तो कोई और मेरा पड़ोसी है जो भी है, बट मैं नहीं मरने वाला. So somehow I think that's how we postpone kind of getting rid of a distracted mind. Because if I knew that my time is right now, will I still be focusing on what I am focusing right now in the head?
yeah.
Would I still be focusing on Matar Paneer, or maybe, or maybe, just while making Matar Paneer, maybe thinking of the mother, I don't know, because I feel that it's very important where my mind is, because that's what I'm going to get when I go on. Exactly. And people say, Kabir says, Asha Trishna na mari keh gaye Das Kabir. So wherever my mind is sticking, if it is sticking to Matar Paneer, the Matar Paneer is going to continue. It's not going to leave me, actually. That's the thing. And if it's sticking to a person or a life situation or a past or a future, it's going to continue. I'm not going to just leave it when I drop the body dead. So it's so important that to make use of every moment and to focus on the right thing, either on the light or whatever, the mother or whatever brings us back to our inner being, because we don't know if we have the next moment or not. And we don't want to continue the Matar Paneer, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think that's where our pain and hits and sudden bounds of attack on the physical play a role in telling us, you have no time, buddy, you better get on the right track. So in fact, they are leaders who guide us. They are the torchlights, I call them, which guide us to start the race, to stay on the race. The moment you become little dhila, again comes the hit that you wake up, there's no time.
Yeah. And also, if you are on the path, actually, really, I experienced that. Even if you are concentrating upon the outer activities, always it is poking from inside always, that new awareness. No, maybe I didn't know for a long time it is that awareness which is poking, but once you get to know it is the awareness really, then it becomes joyful and yeah.
Somebody was worrying actually about what all happens during the death time and what all has to be remembered. Okay, this loka, that loka, where do you want to go? And then this lady, the teacher who we are reading nowadays, Jetsunma Tenzing Palmo, she says that, don't worry, because at the time of the death, you're not going to remember all this, and she makes it so simple again and again to put us all back on the track. She says that just follow the light. To people who are contemplating over death, or are dying chronic illnesses, or maybe in their towards the end, or just stick to your object of devotion. That's what she says again and again, repeatedly, that if you are clinging to the mother, when you cross over, mother will be there to carry you ahead.
Yeah.
To have that
She
faith and just
assured
forget about the theory. She says that forget about the theory, because you can read the theory, it's joy to read the theory, but at the time of death, you're not going to remember what's happening. So to keep it simple and focus on either whatever you have faith in, Hanuman, or whatever, and maybe
Yeah.
light. Yeah. I think I had shared with Taru a message where Ramdas, the teacher Ramdas, he shared that when my master used to wanted to pull me down, he would say, "You are clever." And when he would want to compliment me, he would say, "You are simple." You are simple. So this simplicity, that keeping things very simple and straight, that just sticking to the object of devotion and
Yeah,
relishing that, enjoying that,
definitely.
that would
Yeah.
carry us over. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here also, not for the, yeah.
Taru hasn't spoken today.
I have.
Very filtered.
This book, Life After Death. I mean, Monica, when you were sharing about Kabir Das Ji's Doha, there was this incident mentioned in that book that they had a psychic over to one of those old age homes. And then when he came back, he was like telling that what he saw, whatever. And he said, and there was an old lady sitting on the sofa complaining about coffee. And that lady had died 30 years back, and she always complained about coffee while she was alive. So that psychic saw the lady sitting on the same sofa complaining about coffee. Like, if this is not kind of making, I don't know, it's amazing, and that's true.
Very true, Taru. Very true. Yeah. It will go on like that, actually.
Yeah.
So who wants to be eating matar paneer on the sofa?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I'm talking about matar paneer because I made it today.
I
Sorry for
understood
that.
that.
I could make out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting, our comedy stories and how we play. Yeah, and how we have all the power. It's not, we are connected with that transcendental source of power all the time, but
Yeah.
the roles that we play, it's really amazing. The dramas that we had. Yeah.
So I would like to end with a small drama sharing, and then we'll end the session. It's 2020.
Yeah.
Today, my kid wasn't well, and it was like, somebody was saying, "Ye kar lo," somebody was saying that, and he was fine. He was fine being unnoticed. That's what he wanted most of all. That don't do anything, and that's what I wanted. And something happened, and then I was just walking up the stairs, and this thought came to me that madhouse. This is a madhouse. And the next thought was, I stopped right there when I saw that thought, and I was like, okay, so what are you doing here? So then the logical conclusion was, I am mad too, right? If this is a madhouse and I'm a part of it, that means I am mad too. And then I was like, and from where do you want to go from here? Like, either we can discuss who's madder, or we can move on, right? Like, this thought is not needed. And that was it. So just ending on this note that I am mad too, until I'm not mad, or maybe madness is the way. So thank you so much for joining us this Friday. And as usual, it was very beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
beautiful,
you.
really
Thank you so
beautiful.
much.
Yeah.
You, Sharda didn't talk.
Yeah, I was really immersed in the topic. It was too good, And one thing I wanted to share. See, last week we went to the Bhavan in Bangalore. So till this time, I didn't have the hard copy of this one, the synthesis. As soon as I got it, Captain G started reading from that book, and I was wondering, what is this? Sri Aurobindo is giving me some light. I used to, feel very scared to touch this book. I'm very comfortable with Savitri. Not that I understand everything, but I can always read Savitri with whether I understand it or not. I love to read Savitri. One of my friend in Pondicherry, she always tells me, Sharda, why don't you try reading synthesis? I said, see, I will not. I am more Buddhu. I don't know anything. I don't know whether I'll be able to read it or not. But see, it's a beautiful coincidence that so my daughter was insisting, Amma, you get that book, you get that book. So I got this book. Immediately after coming, he read this from this book. I'm very happy. And today also, Jyotna ji said that 313, I marked it. Maybe it is some divine message for me.
Synthesis
Beautiful.
is the Bible of living integral yoga. It is actually the Bible of how to live the integral yoga and put it into practice. And he goes into such intense detail to try to make us understand what we should do in life and why he's telling us to do it this way. And he explains all the other alternative methods which exist and why they should not be followed or why they are not advantages. So with the result that you actually you understand how to live.
Very true, very true.
We are in the process, we are halfway through, and we started reading about 6 months ago, but it is so interesting that it is mesmerizing. You must start
Beautiful.
reading.
Yeah, maybe that is the message given to me. That is why I got this book. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was wonderful sharing of everyone. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.